I am your brother in Christ. Sorry, I need to make sure I was not muted. I am your brother in Christ, and welcome back to our second part here on this series of Rightly Guided Caliphs. So we have our second Rightly Guided Caliph, Umar, and we will be focusing on his reign, as well as where we left off last time with Abu Bakr. So, for those of you that were with us last time, you remember Abu Bakr was the father of... Oh, good. My wife says everything is working, which is fantastic. He was father of Aisha, which was the child bride of Muhammad, and his whole history with... Okay, good. He was one of the best friends, and very, 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 very early on convert to Muhammad's new religion. And hey, Nate, welcome. Fantastic. I got all my notes in front of me, so if I refer over here, I'm actually reading your guys' comments. So trying to keep back and forth and keep interacting with this. So we are on the second Rightly Guided Caliph. So as we left off with Abu Bakr, he had died. He died of a fever, possibly due to an infection, after one of the sieges on Damascus. So he died shortly after that. We're all broken. What? Oh, Nate making all these jokes, going on the jokes already. Wow, we're not even 5 seconds into this, and he's already going for the jokes. Fantastic. So just a little bit of a recap with Abu Bakr. He reigned for 2 years, total of 2 years before he died. We saw the split between Shiite. We saw the major divide there, where the Sunni and Shiite split off. One of them thinking that, really should have gone to Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, where the Sunni thought, well, no, it needed to go to Abu Bakr. So, again, following this down, where the Sunni continue their line of secession. So going into, and I'm going to try to not make this boring, because there's a lot of intrigue there, a lot of political building with Umar's reign. So right off the bat, first of all, Muhammad said of Umar that if there was a prophet to be after him, and yes, you can hear my son, it would definitely be Umar. So high praise there from Muhammad, setting him up to be one of the caliphs. So he comes in as a second. We are looking at him reigning for 10 years. That is 634, right after the death of Abu Bakr, to 644. So 10-year span. During this time, he inherited it. First off, they're still at war. They're still struggling with the two major powers at the time. We're looking at the Byzantine Empire, which, again, is a Christian empire. So this is all Christian. They controlled what was Israel, that whole section going down right there next to the... next to them right there where Jerusalem was. All the Bible took place there. And then you have next to them, you have the new Muslim empire that's coming up, the caliphs. And above that, and to the east, you have the Sassanid Empire. Yes, that's where we get Assassin's Creed, at least some of the concepts for it, although they're not very good at keeping it historically accurate as far as the mentalities of the two groups between the Assassinid and the Templars. And yes, I am a fan, and I'm looking forward to the next Assassin's Creed coming out on Tuesday, actually. So fantastic. I see fly. Yeah, I know. I was hoping winter would kill the cold snaps would kill them off, but I'm still struggling with them, and they are as annoying as all get out. So I'm going to try to ignore the fly and focus on this content without getting too distracted as I get dive bombed the entire time. So let's go ahead and dive into Umar's history. So as far as Abu Bakr, during the reign of Abu Bakr, Umar was a military advisor. He was very focused on the military end, and we see this come through very apparent in his campaigns and his conquests. Now, granted, if we're looking at these caliphs, so far we have not seen a defensive war. We haven't seen where the Muslims are, well, they're invading us, so we're just going to hold on to what we have. All the battles that we've seen so far have been offensive warfare where they are going to conquer, and this trend does not stop at all with Umar, although he does a lot of good political moving and setting up at least how to handle government. He had a lot going for him, as I can see throughout all the histories, and even looking at it. So he takes power. They're still trying to take Damascus. They're still working on the siege there. So he focuses on that, goes and takes that city. At the same time, they're dealing with the Sassanid / Persian Empire. They're coming down. They're actually kicking the Muslims' butt at this time. So Umar regroups and declares their holy war. Declares a holy war against both the Byzantine Empire, which is Christian Empire, and the Sassanid Empire, which is the Persian Empire to the north. So this is jihad against them. So if you're looking at the holy wars, this was done pretty early on. I know we look at the crusades, and a lot of people say, well, the crusades are the reasons because the Christians came in and they just attacked the Muslims. The Muslims right now don't control most of the Middle East. In fact, they control very little of it. They just kind of control a little bit of Saudi Arabia there, and that's it. At this point, they're declaring holy wars against the two larger nations that are close by them. One of them being a Christian nation, and proceeded to attack them viciously. They were able to focus in on the Byzantine Empire while holding off the Sassanid Empire, and they were able to take all of the areas around Jordan and Jerusalem, conquered all of old Israel, conquered that entire section, taking it from the Christians who had held it for many, many, many years. So they have used a jihad in order to conquer an area which they did not control and was not attacking them in any way, shape, or form. The Byzantine Empire was not persecuting Islam. It was not pursuing to conquer all of Islam. In fact, most of the Byzantine focus was back at trying to retake Rome. Because remember, they're the Western Roman Empire. So they were trying to retake the eastern section of the Roman Empire, and they're distracted over in Europe, trying to facilitate that, while these Muslims come in on their back and hit them from behind. They were able to take that. They take Jerusalem. As far as Umar goes with dealing with other religions and dealing with Christianity, he actually wasn't the worst. I'm not saying he's the best in any way, shape, or form, but as it comes down to Muslim rulers, he wasn't actually that bad. He did allow Christians to worship. Of course, you had the jizya to pay because it's you got to pay for the right to not worship Muhammad. And of course, that goes in line with the Quran 9:29, which says, fight those who do not believe in Allah. And the last day, nor comply with that what Allah and his messenger have forbidden, nor embrace the religion of truth from among those who were given the scriptures until they pay the jizya and are willingly submitted and fully humbled. So basically, yes, they were allowed to worship and keep their place of worship, but they had to pay an extra tax on top of it, where they had to pay the jizya, and are second place citizens in a place where both Jews and Christians were able to worship as equals beforehand under the Byzantine Empire. So wasn't the best, but all in all wasn't the worst. But yet Umar did set in motion things that would eventually lead to the First Crusade in 1099. Now, just as touching on the differences between crusades and jihads again, this jihad was called over 350 years before the First Crusade was called. At this point in Christian history, we did not have the concept of a holy war. It wasn't until after jihad we were attacked using jihad over and over and over again, did eventually we decide, okay, we need to push back and stop this constant invasion from the Muslims. And again, we can see that with them being the first to call a holy war against the Christians. So after they have established and conquered all the lands of Israel, they push the Byzantines to the north, and then they focus down, and they're still doing this while keeping the Sassanid Empire basically at hold. They back and forth. They're not really pursuing them yet, but until they've pushed down and actually take all of Egypt. So they've conquered all of Egypt, brought it all under. Again, that was all under Christian rule beforehand. So this large chunk of land that they just conquered by the sword, with sections of forced conversion, which there were sections of forced conversion, that was all taken long before the European Christians pushed back. So they expanded quite far into Africa. Yes, I know. I always get updates. I'll give you a special shout out if you know what game that's from, actually, if you guys heard that. So I'll shut that down. Okay. So once they've captured Egypt and expanded into there, they then put their full focus on the Sassanid Empire now that the Byzantine Empire is put to shame and put to retreat. Now, I do want to focus in here and give credit where credit is due. That's militarily, he was very, very capable. He was a very, very capable tactician. He was also a very, very capable politician. So all in all, he was not a bad conqueror, as well as from the Muslim point of view. He was very efficient in warfare. He was very efficient in politics. I've got to give credit where credit is due. Even though I drew Muhammad, I've got to say, okay, he did a really good job by all historical accounts. So Umar did fantastic. Considering that he was taking on the Byzantine Empire, which again was the Western Roman Empire, which was one of the superpowers of the time in that area, and then also took on the Sassanid Empire, which was Persian Empire, which was the other superpower of the day. So, and so far they've completely trashed the Byzantine Empire. Granted, the Byzantine Empire at this point was overstretched. It was trying to take back the lands of the Eastern Roman Empire, and because of that, it was investing everything it had there. It was not able to invest in defenses towards the Muslim invasion. And they paid for that lack of intelligence in that regard. But then again, the Byzantine Empire was falling apart at this point. So after that, after taking that land, they went ahead and focused on the Sassanid Empire, conquering land after land. It was pretty quick once they focused on that side of the jihad. They took the capital and laid it to ruin. In fact, there's very, very, very little left of the capital of the Sassanid Empire. Now, the Sassanid Empire was not the nicest empire in the world, not by any stretch of the imagination. If you are familiar with the Assassin's Creed games, basically the Sassanid Empire acted more like the Templars in there. In fact, acted really close to the Templars in there, where they would just assassinate people in public for any sort of political gain. Lots of shadiness going on. So personally, I'm not too disappointed in seeing that the Sassanid Empire has disappeared. In fact, that is where we get the word assassin from. So once they have conquered that, they took slaves. Umar did trade in slaves. He owned slaves. He was quite proficient in slave gathering for personal benefit and profit. So, and that did lead to his downfall, which was followed up by an assassination by one of his Assassinid slaves. I mean, if you're taking slaves from a nation which name is assassin, kind of get what you. This was kind of expected, but yeah, it was after the fall of the Sassanid Empire. It was one of the slaves he got from there, assassinated him, and he did die in 644. And then the caliphate moved on in its ever-rolling changes of succession onto the third Rightly Guided Caliph, which I'll have to cover in another video. But yeah, let's through this one pretty quick. There actually wasn't much to say. I didn't want to go into most of his reign was broken up between either conquest, which was rather rapid, and breaking it up and basically building the foundations of the Muslim concept of a large nation. In fact, most of what he did there, how he broke it up, how he made sure there were rulers placed, his structures really led to a lot of the nation, a lot of the Islamic nations using that as basically their building blocks to build on. He continued to pursue the beliefs of Muhammad, obviously, and put the groundwork in for even worse treatment of women in the years to come. So, not too much of a liberator of women, needless to say. But then again, neither was Muhammad. So, in, I guess, synopsis, as we're wrapping this up with only a 20-minute live stream, but hey, it works. Just give you guys a real quick rundown on his life. He did call jihads, which this makes him the first caliph to call jihads against the Byzantine and Sassanid empires, which both went very well for the Muslim nation. So he was able to do that, and he called that over 350 years before the first crusade from the Christians. So although he was willing to allow Christians and Jews to live in peace, basically, as long as they paid the extra taxes, he did put the groundwork in the future for the persecution and limited access that we eventually see that does lead to the First Crusade. And his initial expanse within that 10-year period brought the Muslim nation into the world stage. Really did bring Islam into becoming a massive player in the world. So if it wasn't for him owning Sassanid slaves, he may have lived longer, but he had obviously following Muhammad's examples in that. So thank you guys so much for joining, but let's go ahead and switch over to Q&A for a second for anyone that wants to ask anything, although I don't think we have anyone in the live stream. Most of you will probably be catching this on the retake. So whenever you do watch this, please put the approximate times you guys watch this down in the description. I mean, not down in the comments, so I know what time really works for you guys, because I'm still working with getting these live streams put in place. Oh, my wife. Show us your sexy sweatshirt. Okay, fine. She is not impartial in this at all. And she is upstairs. Okay. So, yes, I've got this nice sweater, which my brilliant wife has made, and there you go, right there. So, yes, it's my own brand and my own stuff. And my wife made it, which she did a fantastic job. She needs to make her own stuff from now on, not just focus on my stuff, but it was really brilliant. I don't know. Oh, coming up on Tuesday at noon, by the look of it, I will be live streaming again. We have reached 500 subs. So I'm going to do a 500 sub giveaway, where we'll be giving away. I'll be talking probably a little politics, probably spicing it in there with some biblical views as far as what happens with politics, where we're going, what's happening. Yeah, we're just going to have fun with that one. It's going to be a bit more laid back. It's going to be about an hour, where I will be giving away copies of some apologetic books that you guys will definitely benefit from. So if you want to do that, mark it on your calendars. I'll be posting about it, at least getting it scheduled down on YouTube here shortly. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us. And unfortunately, I don't have an obvious baby distraction set up. I was not smart enough to put that in today. So I will have to owe you guys an obvious baby distraction on Tuesday. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time.